Elimelech, the great Rebbe Elimelech Miluzhinsk, the Rebbe Elimelech. The Noam Elimelech. A man came to him once, as people came from him from all over the world. They asked for his blessings. He was one of the great tzaddikim of his generation. The Noam Elimelech, a man once came to him and he said, Rabbi, I'm married for 18 years and I have no children. And we tried everything and all the sigulot and nothing worked. I'm begging you, be merachim, the pain of not having children for 18 years. Bless us. Give us a blessing that we should have a child. The Noam Elimelech looks at the man and he says, I want you to think for a minute. Is it possible in your younger years you might have hurt somebody? Me, Rabbi? Hurt somebody? I'm a very soft person. I have a soft heart. I help people. I don't hurt them. No, Rabbi. I can tell you straight off the bat, I'm not that guy. I didn't hurt anyone. The Noam Elimelech says, I know you're a good person. You're Bal Midot. You're a sweetheart. But think. Was there maybe by mistake someone that you really, really hurt over the years? You might not have realized it at the time. Think. The man is thinking, is racking his brains. No, Rabbi. I haven't hurt anyone. The Noam Elimelech looks at the man and says, let me try to help you. Is it possible that there was a woman you were supposed to marry when you were young? Someone that you said you were going to marry, and you didn't? The man says, what? Rabbi, I met my wife. I married my wife. We're married for 18 years. No, I wasn't supposed to marry anyone else. The Rebbe says, think. Come on, go back. Was there somebody when you were young that you were supposed to marry? Maybe you were engaged. Maybe you were married. Maybe you were supposed to marry. The man is thinking, racking his brains. And then finally he says, nah. And Elimelech says, what was that nah? Nah, Rabbi, nah, come on. And Noam Elimelech says, no, tell me, what's the nah? You know, when someone says nah, generally there's something to that nah. What? He says, Rabbi, listen. There was a girl that lived next door. We grew up together. We were pitzalach. We were little kids, 3, 4 years old. We played together. Okay, we were best friends. And we would play together. We grew up with neighbors. And we were the closest little friends, 6, 7, 8 years old. We even had this little tree house that we built together right next to our houses. And we would go up in the tree house and we would pretend that it's our house. And one day she said to me, I'm going to marry you. And I said to her, I'm going to marry you. And we promised each other that we weren't going to marry anyone else but each other. But Rabbi, we were 7. This is narish kindish play. This is child's play. What? You know how it went? We grew up. We started hitting bar mitzvah age. And you know how it is, boys and girls. They grow up. And even though when they were kids, they were best friends, but it hits a point where they stop playing with each other. At least we hope. They stop playing with each other. And they go their own way. So already when I was bar mitzvah, I went out to yeshiva. I went my way. She went her way. And after that, we kind of went our own ways. And we totally forgot about the promise that we made to each other. And when it came time, I started my shidduchim. I started to date. I went out with the first girl, my wife. She was wonderful. We got engaged. I married my wife. And here we are, 18 years later, waiting to have children. The Noam Elimelech said, do you know what happened to her? He says, no, Harav, I'll tell you the truth. After I started Shidduchim and I got married, me and my wife, we moved away. I didn't keep up with the family. I don't know what happened to her. I guess she got married. Noam Elimelech, Rabbi Elimelech, turns to the man and says to him, I think that you deserve, and she definitely deserves, closure. You owe her a big apology. You have to ask her mechila. You might have broken her heart. The man says, come on, Rebbe, this is a story of 20 years ago. We were little kids. I said, no. You might have broken her heart. You owe her an apology. You must get mehila if you want to have children. Whoa, Rebbe, wow. If you put it like that, where do I find her? I mean, she could have gotten married and moved anywhere. She could be anywhere in Russia, anywhere in Poland, anywhere in Europe. Where do I start? Rabbi Elimelech, he thinks for a minute, and he says to him, there's a great fair that's about to happen now next week in the town of Brod. Go to Brod. Maybe you'll bump into her there. People come from all over to show their wares. Maybe you go to Brod. Maybe you'll bump into her there. The man says, Rebbe, from all places you think. But then he realized, Rabbi Elimelech doesn't talk just like that. The Rebbe Rabbi Elimelech, tzaddik, a gadol. If he's telling you to go to Brod, go to the city of Brod. And he did. That's where the Brodies come from Brod. So the man picks up and he goes out to the city of Brod next week, the big fair. People come from all over the country to show their wares. It's like this huge flea market, like a state fair. And the man is walking up and down the aisles of people, and he's looking for this girl. He doesn't even know what she looks like. He remembers her. He has a picture of her when she was 7. He doesn't even know. He might even bump into her, and he wouldn't even recognize her for a moment. How am I going to do this, he says. This was a bad idea. Why did Rebbe Elimelech even send me here? And this whole thing is ridiculous. I owe her an apology. Come on, we were kids. And he's thinking to himself, what is this? I'm never going to find her. Just then, it starts to pour. But such a downpour, like torrential rains. And this guy, immediately runs with all the other crowd of people for cover. And he runs up to the nearest store that had this canopy hanging out over, and he's squeezing in with a bunch of people trying to make his way under the canopy to stay dry. And as he's squeezing in with people trying to stay under the canopy to stay dry, he feels that he's rubbing up against a woman. So as not to be impolite, he's a religious man, he starts moving away, and he hears a voice behind him say, "Again, you're trying to run away from me?" He spins around. He remembers that voice. And there she is. He comes to her, face to face, huddled together, under a canopy. And she looks at him. And he looks at her. And he recognizes her in a second. And he says to her, "I cannot believe it's you. I am so happy I found you. I came to the city abroad just to see you. I'm begging you, please. Please believe me, I don't want to hurt you. We were kids. And at the time, you were my best friend, but I was 7. And I know I made a promise. And I know you promised me. But life changed. And we got older. And I forgot. And I went my own way. And I married a girl, a good girl. And I'm married now for 18 years. And I don't have kids. I'm begging you, be meichel me. Give me a mechila. Please. I'm begging you for closure for both of us. Give me mechila. And she looks at him. And she smiles. And she says, I'm meichel you. I forgive you. This means a lot to me too. And it stops raining. And they both walk out from underneath the canopy. And he turns around to motion to the wagon driver that it's time for him to leave. He got what he came for. And he turns back around to say goodbye. And she's gone. And the man jumps on the wagon. And he turns to the wagon driver and says, wow, Rabbi Elimelech, he was right, I met her. Take me back to my hometown. I want to stop off there. Once I'm in such a nostalgic lane, I want to stop off there to say hello to my parents and some of the old people and tell them the amazing thing that just took place. What are the chances that I'd meet her? Let me tell people the meifus, the miracle of Rabbi Elimelech. The man takes him back to his old town. And this guy gets out of the carriage and walks up to his old house. And then he looks at the neighbor house where the girl once lived. And he turns around and looks up. And the tree house is still there. The spot where he stood with her and made the promise that he would not marry anyone but her. And he walks back to the house and he's about to knock on his own door. And out from the next door walks out a man. And he looks, and he takes a second look, and he recognizes that's the brother of the girl. He was young, he was a little boy at the time. She was older. He recognizes the brother, he runs up to him. He says, Shalom Aleichem. He says, oh, Shalom Aleichem. Welcome back home to your hometown. What brings you here? And before he says anything, he turns to the brother and says, I have regards for you from your sister. I just saw her in Broad. At a state fair. I just bumped into her. I can't believe it. And the brother says, what? My sister? He says, yeah. I just met her now in Broad. I send her regards. The brother says, are you okay? My sister's dead. My sister's been dead for over 18 years. He says, what? What are you talking about? I just saw her. I just met her this morning in Broad. I stood under the canopy while it was pouring rain. I talked to her. She spoke to me. What are you saying? The brother looks at him and says, what are you saying? Are you out of your mind? My sister's been dead for 18 years. You didn't hear? He says, no, how would I hear? He says, what do you mean? You should have heard. It was the night of your wedding. When you came back from yeshiva and you started to date, you met a girl, you got engaged. And it was the night of the wedding, and the wedding was held in the next town. And as neighbors, my parents went out to the next town to be by your wedding. And they turned to my sister and they said to her, aren't you coming with us to the wedding? This was your best friend growing up. And my sister said, no, that's okay. And she stayed back. And that night she went to bed and she cried her heart out that night in bed. And in the middle of her sleep, she died. Heartbroken. Waiting for you.